Welcome. Take a moment to settle in. Let your body relax, your breath slow, and your thoughts gently quiet down. Tonight we'll take a long, slow journey through time, tracing the lives of the extraordinarily wealthy before the world ever knew a savings account, a stock exchange, or a safety deposit box. In a time when the word billionaire meant land stretching beyond the horizon, when your wealth was counted not in numbers on a screen, but in grain, animals, jewels, and people. We'll begin in the dry heat of a Roman summer, stepping into the soft sandals of a wealthy estate owner in the provinces. Then we'll cross the golden sands of the Sahara, following the quiet procession of Mansa Musa's legendary pilgrimage. Later, we'll drift into the dusty vaults of history, where scribes and merchants invented ways to store money before vaults ever existed. And finally, we'll arrive in Edo period Japan, where wealth was measured in rice, silk, and silent rituals. Each part of this story will unfold gently, like a slow walk through the corridors of forgotten history. You can listen closely, or simply let the rhythm carry you into rest. There's nothing to do and nowhere to be. Just imagine yourself in another life where being rich was as heavy as it was powerful. Before we begin, if you enjoy these slow, calming journeys through forgotten parts of history, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe, and comment what time it is where you are and where you're listening from tonight. Are you winding down in a quiet apartment? Lying in bed, somewhere warm or cold, or halfway across the world? Your comments help others find the channel, and I always enjoy seeing where these quiet stories reach. Now, let's begin. Imagine this. You wake to the low creak of wooden shutters opening. A servant has unlatched them quietly, letting in the dry morning air. It's still early, but already the sun is beginning to warm the walls of your villa rustica, perched above the dusty fields you own. You are a Roman landowner somewhere in the provinces, not a senator, not an emperor, but wealthy by almost any measure. Your estate covers miles. Your wealth is vast, but not easy. It is tied up in vineyards, grain silos, livestock pens, and labor. Not numbers, not coins. There is no bank, no direct deposit, no ATM waiting to tell you how secure your future is. There is only your steward, your scribes, and the memory of what's owed to you. You start the day with a simple meal: bread, cheese, perhaps a few olives. Your cup is filled with watered wine, weak enough not to dull your mind. You'll need your wits. A landlord cannot afford to forget names, yields, or debts. Today is inspection day. You pull on your tunic, not soft, but functional. It itches slightly in the heat. You wear sandals made of thick leather, stiff and dust-covered from the roads. You walk the outer edge of your estate. Slaves work the olive groves, their movements quiet, methodical. There is no machinery, just hands, baskets, and patience. Your overseer nods, scribbles notes into a wax tablet. You speak little. Your presence is reminder enough. A tenant approaches. He's behind on rent, again. He offers a chicken. You weigh the offer in silence. It's not enough, but you nod. To push harder might drive him to abandon the farm altogether. And an empty field doesn't pay. At midday, the heat grows oppressive. You retreat inside, where the walls are thick with plaster and the air is cooler. Your scribe waits in the atrium. Together, you go over the day's accounts, not digital figures, but scrolls, tally marks, and memory. The parchment smells faintly of oil. You seal letters with wax, send instructions to a grain store 2 towns over. Wealth here is not fast. It's heavy. It's slow. It demands presence. You own hundreds of acres, but your coins, those are kept in a locked box in your private quarters or sent by courier if you dare risk it. News of bandits on the road has reached you. There's no insurance, no password reset, only trust and hope. In the evening, you host a modest gathering. 3 other landowners arrive, dusty from travel. You serve them dates, nuts, wine aged in amphorae. You discuss yields, markets, Rome's latest decree on tax reform. No one speaks of feelings. Reputation is everything. You wear a neutral face, even as your stomach churns over a failed wheat harvest to the north. Later, you sit alone in the garden, watching the last light fade beyond the olive trees. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks, a cart rattles by. You think of your legacy, of keeping all this together. Not just wealth, but status, security, the illusion of control. You lean back. The air is cool now. The night stretches long ahead. Tomorrow, you'll wake again to lead the slow, calculated life of a man who has everything, and yet must always work to keep it from slipping through his fingers. Now, drift further south and east, across the sands of the Sahara, into the heart of West Africa. It is the early 14th century. You are in the city of Niani, capital of the Mali Empire, an empire vast enough to stretch across deserts, forests, and rivers. Its power flows not through silver coins or printed notes, but through the weight of pure gold dust. And one man holds more of it than anyone alive. His name is Mansa Musa. Imagine him now, seated beneath a shaded awning. The air is dry and still. His robe, dyed deep indigo, catches the sunlight, while fine gold jewelry glimmers at his wrists and neck. Yet his face is calm, almost detached. The expression of someone who understands the burden of extraordinary wealth. Mansa Musa was not born a legend. He inherited the throne of Mali in the year 1312, stepping into leadership after the previous king vanished on an expedition. The Mali Empire was already rich, its rivers teeming with trade, its soil concealing vast gold deposits. But Musa's reign would bring something different. Not just prosperity, but recognition. In the year 1324, Mansa Musa prepared to embark on a pilgrimage to Mecca, the Hajj, one of the sacred duties of Islam. But this would not be a quiet spiritual journey. Instead, it would become the most opulent pilgrimage in recorded history. The caravan stretched for miles. Over 60,000 people, servants, soldiers, scholars, merchants, accompanied the emperor across the Sahara. He brought with him hundreds of camels, each carrying dozens of pounds of pure gold. His entourage wore embroidered fabrics, carried banners, and recited poetry under the stars. There was music, incense, a slow-moving world of riches gliding across the desert sands. And then they arrived in Cairo. The people of Cairo had never seen anything like it. Markets buzzed. Whispers spread. Musa gave gold so freely to the poor, to scholars, to local merchants, that within weeks, the city's economy began to collapse under the sudden inflation. Prices surged. Currencies lost stability. Gold, once rare and tightly controlled, now flowed too easily. He had given too much, too fast. To fix it, Musa reportedly borrowed gold back, a quiet act of economic damage control. But the moment left its mark. From Andalusia to Alexandria, maps began listing Mali as the land of gold, with a small illustration of Musa himself, seated on a throne, a golden nugget raised in one hand. He had become more than a king. He was now a myth. Yet, even as wealth radiated from him, Mansa Musa spent much of his reign investing in education, religion, and architecture. He funded mosques, libraries, and learning centers, particularly in the city of Timbuktu, which blossomed into a hub of knowledge and trade. His fortune did not sit idle. It moved in bricks, in scrolls, in the hands of scholars. He used his power to solidify Mali's place in the world, not through conquest, but through culture. He returned from his pilgrimage with architects and ideas. He built the Jingwereber Mosque, still standing today. Its mud brick walls a quiet, steady echo of his wealth and faith. There are no modern spreadsheets for Mansa Musa, no precise accounting of how much gold he owned. Estimates today vary wildly. Some call him the richest man in history. Others call him unknowable, a figure too large, too far away in time to measure. But one truth remains. Mansa Musa showed the world what it looked like to be limitlessly wealthy. In a time before central banks, hedge funds, or numbered accounts, his fortune moved on foot. It was weighed, not typed. It shimmered in the sun and vanished in the sand. It could build cities and shift economies. And yet, he walked one step at a time across the desert like any other man. Close your eyes and imagine a world without safes, no PIN codes, no online banking, no numbered Swiss accounts, just people and trust, paper and memory, weight and risk. In this segment, we gently drift into the quieter, often overlooked world of early finance. Not grand fortunes or public displays of wealth, but the fragile systems that allowed money to be stored, moved, and lost in a world without modern banks. Let's begin in Babylon around 2000 BCE. In the heart of the city, where baked brick buildings rose from dusty plains, there stood the great temples, ziggurats that loomed above the market stalls and narrow streets. These weren't just houses of worship. They were the city's earliest banks. Wealthy families would bring their silver or grain, not to a vault, but to a priest, a keeper of both gods and gold. The temple would safeguard the assets, record the transaction on a clay tablet, and take a small offering in return. There were no receipts, just marks pressed into soft clay, dried in the sun. No interest rates, just reputation. Trust was the currency before currency was secure. Now, let the scene change. We're in ancient China, centuries later. Paper has arrived. Ink flows in careful, practiced lines. A merchant, preparing for a journey, writes out a promissory note, an early form of paper credit. He does not carry his entire fortune on the road. Instead, he hands the note to a fellow trader in another province, who agrees to redeem its value in silk, salt, or silver. It is a delicate balance of faith, relationships, and memory. One missing courier, and the money is gone forever. Later, the Islamic world would refine this system. Letters of credit, called sak, from which we get the word check, could be issued in Baghdad and honored in Cairo. A name, a seal, a signature, and wealth could travel without ever leaving the page. But not everyone trusted these systems. In medieval Europe, many nobles still kept their wealth hidden, not in a vault, but beneath floorboards, inside hollowed beams, buried in gardens under the moonlight, a box of coins, a small pouch of rubies, tucked away, wrapped in linen, watched over by servants or no one at all. There are stories, whispered, half remembered, of fortunes lost forever when their owners died without telling anyone where to look, of fire turning family treasure into ash, of shipwrecks dragging chests of silver to the sea floor, of scribes miscopying ledgers, adding an extra zero, or forgetting a decimal that didn't yet exist. And then there were the Medici. In the 15th century, this Florentine family quietly began to formalize the chaos. They built a network of banking houses across Europe, managed not by muscle, but by mathematics. They tracked currency conversions, double-entry bookkeeping, and early interest mechanisms. Their records were meticulous. Their power immense. But their risks still real. Wars could erase accounts. Popes could demand repayment. Kings could default without consequence. Even in this early system, fortunes could vanish, not in violence, but in silence. So, where did the money go? Sometimes it was lost. Sometimes it was stolen. Often, it was simply forgotten. Wealth, before the digital age, had a fragile existence. It had to be hidden, guarded, carried, memorized, and trusted. A mistake could cost everything. A misstep could erase a legacy. And yet, humanity kept trying to measure, store, and secure something as slippery as value itself. Now, gently, let that thought drift away, like a page blowing across a marble floor. We'll soon return, one last time, to a quieter, structured world, a different kind of wealth. Now, let us leave the dusty roads of Europe and the golden sands of Mali behind, and step into the clean, quiet order of Edo period Japan. It is the early 1700s. The air is crisp. The world feels still, deliberate. This is a society where wealth moves quietly beneath layers of formality and silence. There are no vaults here, no ledgers full of numbers. Wealth is measured differently, in rice, robes, and restraint. Imagine yourself seated in a spacious room lined with tatami mats. Shoji screens slide open, letting in pale morning light. The scent of sandalwood drifts from a nearby brazier. It's quiet, deliberately so. You are the head of a samurai household, not a warrior in the field, but a bureaucrat, a retainer, a man of rank. You wear layers of silk. You speak carefully. Your every movement is intentional. And your income? It comes not in coins, but in koku, a unit of rice large enough to feed one man for a year. Your salary is measured in rice. It is delivered in sacks, stored in granaries, converted, when necessary, into goods, but often left untouched, a symbol of status more than utility. Now shift slightly and imagine a daimyo, a powerful regional lord. He oversees vast lands, thousands of retainers, farmers, and merchants. His castle is a city unto itself. Walls, gates, courtyards, and gardens manicured with mathematical precision. Every year, he travels to Edo, the capital, in a grand procession required by the sunken kotai system, a law that forces nobles to live part-time in the capital under the shogun's watchful eye. His wealth is obvious, yet restrained. Silken banners, lacquered armor, rows of mounted guards. But no gold chains, no public boasting. Luxury is shown not in what is said, but in what is perfectly understood. Below them, the merchant class quietly grows richer. They run the inns, sell the goods, count the coins, but remain, officially, at the bottom of the social ladder. Their homes are smaller, their robes less elaborate, their status limited. And yet, they are the ones who begin to master money, inventing accounting systems, issuing local currency, and building wealth too large to hide, yet too informal to flaunt. They dine in private. They fund the arts. They pay the samurai's debts behind closed doors. It is a quiet revolution, never spoken, always known. Within these layers of society, wealth meant more than possession. It meant dignity, harmony, control over one's image. Even the act of spending was deliberate. A new kimono required negotiation, humility, and reflection. A tea set passed down for generations held more value than any coin. The flow of money was circular. A noble received rice, traded it to a merchant, who sold goods to a peasant, who worked the noble's land, and so on. Balance. That was wealth in Edo, Japan. And for the poor, a single bowl of rice, some pickled vegetables, and a simple straw mat to sleep on. There were no fortunes hidden in these homes, only routine, order, duty. But even here, there was pride. The floor swept, the futon folded, the rhythm of the day respected. In this world, everyone knew their place. And for many, that was worth more than money. Let that image stay with you. A still garden, a warm bowl of rice, a life of quiet wealth, measured not in coins, but in peace. And now, as the night deepens and the stories settle, let your thoughts soften like parchment curling gently at the edges. We've wandered far tonight, across empires and centuries, through the olive groves of Rome, the golden dunes of the Sahara, the candlelit ledgers of early merchants, and the hushed elegance of Edo's noble homes. We've seen wealth in its many forms, not as lines on a screen, but as grain, rice, robes, and reputation, heavy, visible, fragile, tied to seasons, servants, scribes, and the shifting trust of others. There were no passwords, no pins, only locked doors, distant couriers, careful rituals, and quiet worry. For the rich, life was rarely simple. Power came with pressure, luxury with risk, a misplaced scroll, a failed harvest, a single storm at sea. And fortunes could vanish. And yet, through it all, there was rhythm. The slow cycle of daily life. The familiar routes walked, the same olive tree visited each morning, the same inkwell, the same rice bowl, the same measured breath before speaking. Even in a world without banks, without systems, we now take for granted, people found ways to hold on to value, to preserve it, display it, pass it on, not always wisely, not always fairly, but always with care. As you rest now, in a time far removed from theirs, know that the weight of coins no longer burdens your pockets. There are no scrolls to review, no ledgers to balance, only the hush of the room around you and the steady rhythm of your breath. Let it all fade. The footsteps of the Roman land baron, the shimmering caravan of Mansa Musa, the rustle of parchment and the scent of rice. They were once real. Now they are only stories, soft shapes in the dark. And with that, you may let go of the past and drift quietly into sleep. Good night.